I have absolutely adored today, and there's been so much said during these panels that is leading into what you guys are just about to say. So we're going to do a very quick round of introductions, and then we're going to go straight into comments. So, Thorsten.
Hello everyone, my name is Thorsten. I'm with Germany's leading business school, ESMT Berlin, and my business is all about turning new technologies into startups and then hopefully innovations that scale globally, also in the sector of compute. So doing this kind of business now for 15 years.
Wolfgang from Vienna, running a venture fund, early stage, deep tech companies who will hate me because we're looking for the better, which is the enemy of the good.
Hello, my name is Michalis Voulgarelis. I'm leading the global sourcing of network digital infrastructure in Equinix. 25 years in the telecom industry. I enjoyed, some of the other panelists that were talking about fiber, subsea. And we always keep an eye, and all the evolution of AI, deep tech really affects also all the capacity and the flow of traffic. And happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Sasha. I run the investment programs at DeepTech Labs. We are a fund and accelerator built at the University of Cambridge by Cambridge University and Arm, looking to commercialize research, now beyond Cambridge. Sorry.
Sasha. Hello everybody, my name is Abel. I am CTO at Istari. It's a pure growth fund established by Temasek from Singapore, and we invest only in cybersecurity companies, Series B, Series F and onwards.
Brilliant. So what we're trying to do today is say, okay, we've got this data center world and we keep on hearing power, water, demand. And we're trying to solve those problems right in front of us. But these guys, at least 4 of them, every day are working with startups who are trying to get there faster. You can actually get a computer that goes 1,000 times faster, so you don't need the power. You've got it. You can do more computing without adding power. And our goal today is to open up your eyes to what's going on in that ecosystem and to see how you can help. Because instead of waiting for those startups to get to market in 5 years, if you guys can help and step in, we can solve those problems in 2 years. Those products can get to market in 2 years. So that's why we're here. So we're going to start with the 2 accelerators, and it would be great just to hear the kind of businesses you work with and how that could ever impact these guys. So Thorsten, as you're next to me.
Happy to. So we are running an accelerator called the Creative Destruction Lab, which is one of the top 10 startup accelerators globally, which also built the first ever quantum stream out of Toronto. So we are in Berlin in Germany, part of that global network, and all together from North America to Europe and then also to Australia. We are digging deep into research organization and the startup ecosystem, and we're finding those hidden gems of new computing startups that are actually able, hopefully, to transform that industry. And it's really good to hear all the challenges that we heard today about how do we have more compute power, how do we cater things towards AI, how do we make sure that the cooling and the energy problem is being tackled, data transmission. We even talked about sea cables and making sure that the infrastructure is being protected. In all those areas, we are finding those young startups who are working on new technologies. And then we are bringing them together in an 8-month program, and we put them into a room with really experienced mentors, people who have seen startups, innovations being scaled before, because they've invested in them, because they've founded them themselves and sold it into that industry. Maybe they have been corporate decision makers and working on startup activities and innovations for decades. And some of those people are actually represented here on that beautiful panel. And we are very proud that we can work with those people, or even more proud that the startups can. And still, despite all the great expertise that we bring to that Creative Destruction Lab platform, really world-class mentoring, all the startups still have challenges to understand how can my technology be plugged in that established industries and all the businesses that are represented right here. And that's kind of the collaboration models, I guess, we should explore today. How do we make sure that those startups get access to your insights, your expertise, and build innovations for the future of compute together to solve and tackle all the challenges we talked about the entire day, which was really fascinating.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sasha.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we'll talk a little bit about a few of our portfolio companies that are sort of obviously and less obviously relevant to the assembled company. So yeah, I think it's in universities it's been pretty unglamorous, I think, for the last 5-10 years to work in photonics. But you know, they've been going regardless and working ahead. And in the last 6 months, 2 of our portfolio companies who are working on optical switching for networks, for serving specifically for data centers to reduce latency, are getting huge traction, surprisingly. They're receiving great funding, and particularly one that is working to build, as they put it, the entanglement fabric for quantum through optical switching. So they're linking up quantum processors to build a sort of distributed quantum computer. And that took us by surprise. We didn't expect them to get so much positive feedback from the market, because we probably didn't really know who to talk to in the market there. And I think that's a very interesting point to look at. Those are direct companies that I could probably come and say, you know, this, I can show you how this would benefit you if you were interested. Another one that was raised earlier today, you know, obviously it's very well known that cooling is a big issue, and water cooling is now seemingly better established actually in the industry than I'd thought. But I, for one, and probably only one in this room today, was really surprised to hear somebody, I forget who, say we're going to build a new data center and it's going to be about $1 billion and it's going to be 20% extra for water cooling. And so for me, I thought, 200 million for water cooling? Wow, that's extraordinary. And
For one data center.
Yeah, absolutely. But and you know, even in that moment, I thought, so we have, just again to name check another of our portfolio companies, a company called Baracal. It is a professor at Cambridge who's been working for the last 15 years on solid refrigerant. How can he make, you know, instead of using liquid, you know, greenhouse gas emitting refrigerant to cool air, can you do this with something that's a solid fuel and emits nothing? And using this barocaloric method, he has now proven this out. So I would love anybody who would like to figure out how much of a saving that could make on just one data center as an intellectual exercise, if nothing else, you know, to figure out how to get that moving. Who should we talk to?
Brilliant, thank you. So these guys are running accelerators. In the magazine there's a list of 18 examples of startups. There are hundreds out there, literally hundreds out there, trying to solve your problems. Then we have 2 guys in the middle of the ecosystem. Michalis, I'm going to come to you last, sorry. Wolfgang, would you like to explain what you're investing in, what you're seeing, and what you're seeing the challenges of these startups as?
Well, the challenge is raising money. And actually, to be clear, I'm quite jealous sitting here and seeing what enormous amounts of money are put into huge data centers. Data centers which are, in my viewpoint, in terms of the architecture, far away from a perfect architecture at the end of the day. So what is a data center doing with the old von Neumann architecture? It's moving electrons around, backward and forward, memory, processor, processor, memory, processor. It's doing huge matrix multiplications. And it's needing enormous amounts of energy there, and it produces a lot of heat, of course. Now, consider the human brain, 1.3 liters, driven by 20 watts. And if I have a down, I just eat a chocolate, don't need a diesel generator, and I have 30 watts. And I can process with my head, with your head, we can process in terms of the cognitive capabilities far more than a data center still. So obviously, in terms of the form factor, in terms of the energy use, in terms of the whole resources utilized, we are far away from an optimum. And what I can tell you, in the startup community, there are teams who are working on these technologies, which would you realize that? There are technologies, software architectures, hardware architectures, which emulate the human brain just by electrical circuits, without matrix multiplications, without memory. It's in-memory processing, it's memristor-based. It's like the human brain works, with the power consumption which is about a factor of 10,000 lower than what is needed in a data center. What about storage in data centers? Data center storage, magnetic tapes, Stone Age. HHD, welcome, 24/7, running day and night. After 3 years you have to replace. So is this where we want to store all this data we're producing in AI? Is this a real technology still? So we should consider about new storage technology. There are ideas outside we can do another way of storage. Yeah? Ceramic storage on ceramic layers, or storage in biological DNA. Already this is done in laboratories. Yeah? Cooling. We talk about quantum. Yeah, this is another stage. The next stage will be on quantum. But let me tell you something about cooling in quantum. There is no real idea how to scale cooling for quantum tech. This is quite a cold. We are close to the absolute degrees of zero, so minus 273 degrees. How do we want to provide scalable cooling for these kind of centers? With helium-3, we don't have enough helium-3. Helium-3 is the cooling medium which is used now. Helium-3, we're running out of that. So we are doing investments into quantum, we don't have a cooling for it. So there are also some solutions for that. One of our startups is doing that, Qtra. So many things of ideas. And my plaidoyer would be, watch out, give some of the billions which you are spending to the startup community and let them develop. Let them create the better, which is the enemy of the good. And watch what comes up. So you're not going to be surprised like Nokia has been surprised by the smartphone, or IBM has been surprised by the cloud, or Google has been surprised by ChatGPT. Yeah? All the large incumbents which rely on their big fat technology and then are totally thrown out of the arena by something new. Watch out, take some investment in that, utilize guys who know that, and get emphasized by them.
Thank you, Wolfgang. If anyone's sitting there feeling that you're in a fat corporate, I do apologise. Abel.
Yes, thank you. So the last 5 years have been a growth investor, and that means taking companies from 10 to 100, which for you, again, as we've said, is perhaps not a lot of money. But before that, I've been 20 years as a head of IT, global CIO for large enterprise. And like you, I know that it's not just finding the right innovation, the kernel of wisdom, etc. It's about adopting this technology and being able to scale it. It has to be robust, it has to be tested, it has to be proven. Now, what I've learned over the last 5 years, it's a bit of a tale of two cities. If you think about my experience as a global CIO in pharma, global pharma, I spent about 10 years investing millions a year in use cases for medical devices, drug discovery, drug development. Highly regulated, very difficult scientists that are working with a workbench that they know and trust, and it's hard to get them to adopt and adapt to new innovative technology. Take another example. So AI in life sciences, we're still waiting, right? And we're still, we see some kernels, but it's not quite there. Over the last 18 months, one of the companies that we invest in, we have about 12 assets in our portfolio. And I'm in the board of a couple of them, and one of them started dabbling in ChatGPT and using large language models for coding, and over the last 18 months has been able to revolutionize the way that they code, and in 18 months they are, 6x more productive. So my point is, growth for all of us requires creating a capability in adapting and adopting innovation. And my colleagues have been talking about the kind of technologies that we mentor, and through CDL in Europe, there's a gap between how industrial ready these technologies and innovation are, and you guys have the opportunity to step in and help us design partners, some of these small companies, be fit for purpose. They are not today, but working with these small companies and dedicating part of your time, I think it's existential for industries like ours. I've seen large pharma progressively become generic. We cannot let AI become a utility just because we're looking at extending past practices into the future, when we have access and ready access in Europe to fantastic technology that is waiting for design partnerships.
So Michalis, before you can defend yourself.
No. I'm very excited about what I hear already. So
yeah, fantastic. Someone in this room, I'm not going to look at them, they will remain nameless, said to me last night, this industry is now old. It's full of old decision makers in their 50s. Excuse me, I'm 55, so you know. And they won't innovate. Oh my God, liquid cooling, let's talk about that for 3 years before we do anything. Actually, we think we're a young industry. Yeah, maybe we're not. And that's what we're seeing with these startups, and that's where you feel the passion coming through, that's where you feel the frustration. These startups need to get into you because they can solve your problem. And Carlos, I know Equinix do some stuff. Over to you to defend you.
No, absolutely. And by the way, I was really excited because I also heard my colleagues here talk about the challenges. And I think this is a very good also opportunity that I'm here, because in Equinix, this is actually what we do, is that we are, of course, we do everything that we have discussed before, you know, the liquid cooling innovation, heat export. So for example, we can, we partner with energy companies so we can take the heat and that can be distributed back to the communities, to schools, to things like that. We have already 100 plus sites liquid cooling ready. So we do all that. You know, we have 260 data centers worldwide. But what is really our interest is the platform, is the ecosystem. So this is what actually is the layer that Equinix is excelling, is that we have infrastructure, but we have also the ability to bring these two works together. So we have customers that are really hungry for that kind of innovations. We have tech labs. We always care for the deep tech, the startups, the innovators, and it happened also in Equinix that we, even on the executive level, we provide sponsorship, we provide mentoring, as well as we participate in incubator programs, in STEM charities, and we also give the opportunity to customers to test and consume, and in this case, in this example, such kind of developers and companies that really want to have access, we can facilitate that. So this is the layer that Equinix is really interested in, and this is how we work, because in reality, for Equinix, you know, not only for Equinix, for everybody, the infrastructure is the hardware, is as you probably said, is the equipment, the medium to do something for it. And this is what Equinix really is focusing, is actually the human interaction, how the ecosystem works together. And that, of course, for example, we are onboarding startups, and as soon as you're onboarded, if you have, for example, a customer that is interested, we can run a POC, and even in the example you mentioned about the liquid cooling, if it is a POC that it's in our interest, we could work towards this direction.
I think there's a concept there.
Well, follow up.
Wolfgang, you want to say something?
Let me just reflect some of the experiences our startups have here. So when you work with these large guys who swimming in money, yeah, it takes 6 months before you get the purchase number from the purchase department.
I'm in procurement, I can take care of that.
It takes 3 to 5 months until they pay a first invoice. Because of course the large ones must optimize the working capital. Yeah? The first what you get offered is a POC, but not paid. Just tell us, let us find out whether the concept works out. Yeah? For startups, this doesn't work. Startups have a totally different clock time. Startups have an extremely capital effectiveness. These are small lions, yeah? Angry and hungry lions who can do within seconds an enormous amount of knowledge. Yeah? So that's what the oil, how we can refuel that is a little bit of money which is there, giving them, yeah? And which is money which they can use in order to realize the technologies, and not let them go through the whole corporate processes of let's make a POC, and then let's see, and then let's evaluate, and then let's go up to the next investment committee. And
well, actually, I understand your point, but in essence, the enablement that the company like Equinix offers, because as you said, of course, it is a larger scale. Sometimes it's challenging to work in that kind of basis, but it happened before. For example, we have an example in quantum computing that we had not one of the big companies that really, you know, was incorporated in our Tokyo data center, and all of a sudden there was interest in 20 different regions. So we have examples. One thing brings the other, and we, of course, you know, all of us are adapting and are, let's say, learning from this kind of, let's say, bureaucratic methods somehow. But as Karen said, we are young, even if, size of Equinix is considerable. It's a 25-year-old company, and we have the ways to, and we have our ears open to that kind of challenges, and in order to enable as much as we can because in the end, this is the driver for our industry too. So this is the drive. I mean, all the decisions we heard about how we need to find land, we need to find power, and who comes first and who takes that. This is what drives. So, of course, there are some big players that have spearhead that. But I would agree that the smaller startups are the ones who really have the ideas that need to be supported by the industry.
Yeah, they're coming. They're coming. Thorsten, you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to address what just has been said, and what Wolfgang is describing is a pattern we see in many different industries, that incumbents are not just equipped how to work, they haven't established an effective interface on how to deal with those startups. And we call that ambidexterity. Of course, you need to still run your business, and you need to be profitable, and you need to continue to work on what is your business today. But you need to have that other hand that's actually able to focus on innovation and working with startups. And there's so many different experiences out there in the past decades, how companies made the right choice how to do it, also wrong choices really completely failed in how they are working with startups. But you can also learn from the best practices, and this can start from, well, POCs are a good thing to start with, but have a key entity within that corporate that has a radar. That is maybe also with working like accelerators like Sasha and me are running, and are sitting next to VCs, entrepreneurs, corporate decision makers, and have kind of a luxury due diligence over 8 months, because they get all those perspective of really experienced entrepreneurs. And is this startup going to work? Talking about DNA, well, there's a wonderful storage company, and you will find it also in that beautiful magazine. Is it going to fail? Most likely. But this is what disruption is all about. Most of them fail, but some of them come through. And you better have that radar on right early, and you detect them. And then you're able to also detect whether your business is going to be disrupted. And then it's not only about collaboration with startups, maybe directly investing into them, or start with investing into a fund like my colleagues are running, and get a sense of how they are looking at the world, what kind of deal flow they are seeing, what they can tell you about how the future of your industry will look like. So just saying there's really tons of experience out there how to do it right, and how to tap into that rich startup, very rich startup ecosystem.
Totally. Abel?
Sasha, you want to go for that point?
Thank you. I'll be brief. On that, I think just to expand a little bit on this topic, a lot of the companies we work with, they're selling to corporates. Obviously, they need to have robust systems before they can be deployed. Absolutely. But a problem that we have is corporates don't really want to deal with them until that point. Now, when they're building their initial product, when they're designing their initial product, they don't necessarily have a good enough understanding of the customer problem. So they'll build it for the wrong thing, because they don't know what they don't know. They're not experts in that thing, they're experts in their own thing. And so, again, I would hazard, not being from this side, that that's true on the other side. That the corporates then don't necessarily know which problems of theirs could be solved and how they could be solved. But in the earlier stages, if we can get around that product design, if there's an appetite for it, this isn't for everybody. Lots of startups, most startups fail. But I suppose if there is an appetite for it, getting in early and really, setting them up for success in terms of solving the right problems, I think is key.
So it's a good follow-up. We invest mostly in Israeli and Silicon Valley companies. That's where it's hot in cybersecurity. So I've thought a lot about what it takes to pick the winners and to increase the success rate of where we place our capital and where you place your time. And it comes down really to 5 or 6 factors. I won't discuss all of them, but there's 2 that really stand out for me. One is the proximity to the use case, which you mentioned. And this is clarity around the engineering constraint or business model constraint that we're trying to solve. And for many, particularly in Europe, we tend to have entrepreneurs that are PhDs testing a science project that has commercial application. we need to bridge that. And when I say we, as many of the people in the room, but we as an ecosystem can help get clarity around the business case, the constraint that we're trying to solve for. I mean, I was challenging Karen, what if we come up with an X price? Throw out 100 million to solve for the cooling constraint. And put that out there as a carrot, independent of other stuff. I mean, maybe we will end up with a SpaceX-like company that can scale globally. And the process of getting from 10 to 100, which I lived through, is full of landmines. And the second type of landmines that people have is that the founder sometimes does not realize that they have a business model that requires a professional team, a professional CEO. And you and us need to play a role as board advisors, as investors, as senior members, speaking for myself, experienced people supporting younger leaders that can really see past their current constraints as leaders to what we say in CDL, right? Build something massive. And that ambition is not always compatible with 6 weeks of vacation. And believe me, the Israelis and the people in Silicon Valley are not held back by constraints that are typically European. We need to be able to bridge that, and we need to do that together.
So a question for all of you. You can all answer, none of you answer. What can the people in this room do to make a difference? What do you want them to do, other than give you a check?
I think, as we said before, start interacting with that ecosystem. I'm not sure to what extent you do, but what usually I'm on conferences where every second word is innovation or disruption or startup, which hasn't been the case today. So then the question is, to what extent do your companies, and also yourself as a leader of your company, do you tap into the ecosystem trying to understand what's happening out there, and how can I enable my own company to get early access and to support the startups, because they will give back as they grow. And you absolutely have the lever to provide them with the necessary skills and resources early on, and this will help all of us to find the solutions to all the major problems that have been addressed today.
I would say, sorry, no, I mean, I would just emphasize what I said before, that, and this is mostly for the data center community, is that, which is where I'm sitting, right? Is that, and from my experience from what we do in Equinix, is that we use our and the opportunity that we have customers from all parts of the ecosystem to bring the layer up, not just, I'm selling you X space and that space, but to be in the middle and to have a platform and a layer that we can bring these communities together, as Thorsten said. So these different actors that really can contribute to what we're looking for.
I'll go if you're not ready. I would ask you guys to come back to your leadership teams and engage them in the process of innovation effectiveness. How good are you at adopting innovation of things that, and I don't mean product innovation only, true innovation to your business models, to the way you work, by going outside and bringing it in? That's a question that in the corporate world we're just not great at. Innovation is great as long as it doesn't happen against my incentives, right? That's what I would ask you to do.
Yeah, well, what can we do? Give startups or selected startups the Ferrari ticket. So don't let them go through the corporate machine, give them a Ferrari ticket. Number one. Number two, change your corporate culture. Kill those managers who are not making mistakes, because these obviously have not risked enough, and they are not brave enough in order to try something new. Bring them in combined learning communities. So even if the startup fails, you can then hire off highly talented young guys, because the talent at the moment goes into startups and not into the large corporations. So you could take that as an excellent recruiting resource. Yeah, and at the end of the day, watch out. As I said before, the better is the enemy of the good. Don't fall into this Nokia, IBM, whatever trap. Say there are new things anti-porters, and one must deal with it, and one must get exposed to that, and one must learn from that. and be ready to adapt quickly and not to be too slow, like the German automotive industry was, as another example for a big laggard.
This has sort of already been said, but just simply put, I think startups, particularly academic spin-outs, science-driven startups, they are often hammers in search of a nail. And I think what would be really helpful would be to define some nails, some problems that you'd be interested in working with startups on. We have this problem and we'd actually like to explore innovation in this area, to show them, maybe they're coming at the wrong angle of the business. If you have 1,000 cooling companies coming to you, maybe that's not helpful, but maybe there are certain areas that you'd be open. And then make that journey easy for them. Give them a person to talk to and a procurement process that's livable, survivable for them.
By the way, here fund could help you to make this pre-selection. So it's not that you have to deal with everybody, but there are organizations like the Creative Destruction Lab guys who are really creative and destructive, believe me. And you have these VC guys like me who have an enormous overview and who is very selective. So we select 4 startups out of 1,400 a year. Yeah? So there is already a quite high selection in there. Yeah? And this is a source of SA, the real stars, the real potential stars, which you get into exposure with.
So we've got 31 seconds. I'm going to wrap up. You can see there's a huge passion here. There's a huge frustration that these people are trying to solve your problem and it feels like you're ignoring them. It's really good fun to mentor these companies as a learning and development opportunity for you as individuals. It's fantastic and you get to meet people like this. And so there is an opportunity. If I had a magic wand, 10, 20 of the big organisations within the data centre world or the digital infrastructure world would all put 10 million in a pot, curated, and we manage it, and actually we accelerate 200 of these startups. We solve our problems 2 years earlier. That's my magic wand. I'm naive, I know, I'm optimistic. But in between, from that to where that goal is, or that vision would be, each one of you and each one of your corporations can do a lot more than you already are. Thank you. One session to go for the